My name is Katherine Harrington, and today I'm going to present based on option number one. Music has a very specific way of making people feel. If you really let the music sink in and you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you will feel a roller coaster of emotions from as little as a single song. That being said, I believe that one of the most magical and powerful things is live music. Live music gives you the chance to truly feel what the performer wants you to because they are giving you the most honest example of their art that they possibly could. Generally, there are different emotions that come to you depending on the style of music that you are witnessing and the location that you happen to be in. I am choosing to focus on three very different performance styles. The first is a Florence opera house, the second is a Lutheran church, and finally, third will be the rock concert. I chose these three because of how vastly different that they are, while still having the ability to pull emotion out of each attendee in a different way. Pictured here in this image is the exterior of the Teatro della Pergola. From the outside of the theater, it does not look as majestic as one might think. However, at this time, this building stands as the oldest working theater house and opera house in Florence, Italy. It was built in 1656 during the reign of Giancarlo de' Medici. Its inaugural performance was Il Postista di Colognol by Jacopo Milani. As this is an opera house, the music performed is likely in the opera style, sung in classic Italian. This theater was opened to the public in 1718 and had the honor of hosting Mozart's operas for the first time in Italy. Here is an image of the interior of the opera house. It is still not nearly as beautiful as I would have expected, but holds the same style as many of the other opera houses that I have seen. The attendees of the opera must have been relatively passive. They were likely unfamiliar with the music, making it impossible to sing along or act along with them. The theater itself wasn't even open to the public for 62 years, as the monarchs had it for their own personal use. This gave them a period of time to enjoy it without the interference of the public, and those who were lower class than they were. Peasants were not unable to attend the performances, as many of the opera playwrights wrote for the masses. However, the majority of the time, they were unable to afford the tickets offered. I personally would have loved to see one of Mozart's operas at this theater, as I can't even imagine how beautiful it would be. I imagine that my emotions would range throughout the entire performance. I believe that I would laugh and also cry, but end up leaving with a feeling of joy and overall happiness. The second example that I will be focusing on today is the Lutheran Church. As someone who grew up in a Christian church, I can understand how music is extremely important to a religious worship service. I believe that I have a good understanding of what it must have been like to experience the music played in the Lutheran churches in the past, because to them, the hymns that were played were contemporary in a similar way that worship music is today. The Lutheran Church was formed by Martin Luther, following his 95 Theses that he nailed to the door of the Catholic Church in 1517. The Lutherans believed that music is a great treasure and that the perfect way to worship their Lord and Savior. Luther himself was a musician and wrote many hymns to be performed during his services. To give a visual, this is an image of a historical European Lutheran church. On the other hand, this is a Lutheran church in Texas that was built much later on. As you can tell, the architecture and the style of the building differs greatly in those two images. However, I am sure that the music and the style of the service was and is currently very similar to each other. Since this is a church, anyone can enter the doors. I am sure that the attendees participated in the songs by singing as they pleased, as this is a form of worship. The services must have been quite emotional to attend. I don't believe that there is any specific performance or song that I would like to hear more than any others in this situation. However, I would really like to experience what it would be like to attend a Lutheran service. I am sure the music would be humbling and powerful. I do not think I would necessarily leave happy and in a good mood, but I do not think that it would make me sad either. I assume that I would feel overwhelmed with calming emotions as I would be leaving from a powerful time of worship. The third and final example that I will share is a rock show. Rock shows can be vastly different from each other, as the genre has been spread so widely over time. Rock music came into popularity in the 1960s after its original formation in the 40s and 50s. This style has been gaining traction and evolving ever since. Rock started as a merge between African musical tradition and European instrumentation. It usually involves a drum set, at least one electric guitar, a bass guitar, and very strong vocals. Here is an image of an early rock and roll show. Does this band look familiar to you? Hopefully they do, as this is the Rolling Stones. Bands like the Stones were extremely influential to the birth of rock and roll music. In this time, during the height of their popularity, people would do anything to see a rock and roll concert. That's how important it was to them. Over time, rock and roll has evolved into having a different sound than it did in its earlier years. It still tends to have the same basic format of instruments, but these days, rock and roll can have a lot of different styles. For example, this is an image of the Killers. They have been a huge name in the music for a very long time. Their style is much different than Walk the Moon, the band pictured in this image. However, both are classified to be rock bands. Today, you can see a rock show any night of the week. There are so many different venues around the city of Chicago that each hold their own personality and charm, making them so different than the rest. The feeling and overall vibe of seeing certain bands live at Soldier Field is vastly different than when you see the same band in a much smaller venue such as Lincoln Hall. Generally, rock concerts take place in venues that are dark without any seats. There are usually a large room with a stage and maybe a balcony or two, but not much else. They are relatively simple places. However, they can also take place in large stadiums where football, baseball, or soccer teams might host their home games. This generally depends on the size of the band and the capacity needed for their fan base. At this moment in time, I think that one of the best rock and roll groups to see live would be a Fleetwood Mac revival concert. I grew up listening to their music, and to this day, it impacts me on such a deep level. I have a feeling that it would overwhelm me and make me feel every emotion possible. A more current and much more likely situation would be to see the band Bleachers live in concert. The lead singer, Jack Antonoff, has a way of writing and producing music that is extremely good and has been so impactful to my life. He has inspired me a lot, and his music makes me feel a lot of different things. I think if I were to get the opportunity to see him live in concert, I would be extremely happy overall. As you can see, all of these different types of music and the venues that they are performed in are very, very different from each other. Hopefully, I have been able to open your eyes to see the difference of these three different musical situations. However, there are so many more, and I haven't even been able to scratch the surface. If I were to go on any longer, we would be here all day. Over the years, as different styles of music have emerged, others have been forced to change. However, the one thing that has not changed is the ability for music to make an impact on people. Like I said before, there is not much better than seeing music performed live, especially when it's by your favorite artist or somebody that you love. Music is powerful, no matter how you choose to experience it.